Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Casa De Spurs podcast. I am your host, Stephen Hale, Alfonso Del Quan, the Hailstone, whatever you want to go by that. And I am joined by my new guy here, Mr. Daniel Sandoval. Danny, dude, thanks for jumping on, man.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for the invite, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for you right now because you got some big shoes to fill, man. Trace and I have been doing this podcast for a minute.
I do have very big shoes.
I know that you have been a friend of the podcast. You've been on a few times. So whenever Trace, who's moving to Germany, of all places, we were like, hey, I need a guy here. I need somebody that can step in and fill some big shoes. You were the first guy that came into my mind. I was like, let's make this happen. So I'm glad you're here, bro.
I'm honored that you would ask me to join you. I'm honored that you would extend that invite to me. I do have some very big shoes to fill with Trace. I'm not going to lie. There really is no replacing Trace. He has traded in his Dogecoin for Deutsch now. So
to the moon.
To the moon. Well, I mean, gosh, what happened today?
That's what I don't want to talk about that.
But yeah, I know, me neither. But I'm excited. I think we're going to make this a heck of a show, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. And I know the rest of Spurs Twitter is looking forward to it also. So
yeah, for sure. Now here's the funny part is you and I have actually never met in person except for like, did we meet at so here's the quick story for any of our listeners. Me and your brother and I were roommates at Bible college. Like, gosh, that would have been 2008. So 13 years ago.
A lifetime ago. Yeah.
A lifetime ago. And I thought at the time, your brother Chris, I was like, this guy's my Spurs fan. And then lo and behold, Chris had another brother, who was a bigger Spurs fan. And so we literally found each other like on Spurs Twitter, and we played in fantasy football leagues together. But I think that's kind of funny, kind of a small world how we all got here. So
it is a small world. Yeah. So we have my brother to thank for our meeting. So
that's right.
Thank you, Chris.
Right. Thank you, Chris. Cash, whatever, who's talking about comic books or something like we forget him.
Lost in Comics. Go follow that one, I guess.
All right,
if you're into comics. Yeah.
So let's talk. This is the house of the Spurs. This is the Spurs house. So let's talk about these Spurs. They are currently the 10th place Spurs, sitting at 28-28. As of right now, they would have a play-in game against the Golden State Warriors, who should the Spurs even find themselves in that situation, their prize for being the 10th seed is getting to play Steph Curry, who is currently going bananas across the NBA at the moment. They've had a pretty rough 2 weeks, although they did have two nice wins over the last couple days here. I guess we would maybe pause on calling them nice wins. They had 2 wins. But they're back at 500 right now. They still have a pretty tough schedule ahead. So I just want to get your quick thoughts here. What have you seen in the last couple weeks? Trace and I have the last podcast we had was about 2 weeks ago. So let's just cover that. What have you seen over the last couple weeks that you've liked or not liked from this San Antonio Spurs team?
There's been a whole lot that I've not liked. I think I've made that quite evident on Twitter. I think anyone who follows me knows that. I was actually at the game on Friday night against the Blazers. That was the first game I've been to this year. It was really weird because they obviously have a limited capacity, and I think there was maybe about 4,000 or 5,000 fans. Really hard to get up and get excited. Obviously, the game was exciting, especially the last minute or so. I really thought they had that game won in the third quarter whenever they're up 16, especially without Dame and without. I think they were out without somebody else too. I'm forgetting at the moment. I'm drawing a blank. But we were good. I mean, we were rolling in third quarter. Everything was good. But just like we've had this frustration all year with Pop and his mysterious rotations, there's no Devin. Obviously, no Luka for the Luka fans out there. But no Devin, which is for me the big one. And
I think that was very frustrating.
We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but that was obviously very frustrating. So there's a lot I have not liked, and we just came off of the longest homestand we've had in the franchise's history of 9 games. We won a whopping 2 games. That's unacceptable. I think that the fans are gnashing teeth and chomping at the bit, wanting to stir up some change. But really, it's just the same old thing. And I think as long as Pop's there, that's what we're going to have. And right now, we're very mediocre, and the team is what it is. It's a young team, and I think they're still just learning their way. But I think if you and I had our druthers, we'd have a lot more of DeJounte, Derek, Devin, Keldon, and the young guys.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with losing. Losing has not been the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, I that's one thing I do agree with Popovich about is like the ball's either going to go in or it's not. Like there's not a whole lot you can do about it. I have way more issues in the way that we're losing. I think I coined this phrase earlier. Like this is the softest tank job ever. Like it's like you're not rolling out Rudy Gay and Patty Mills for 30 plus minutes a night while sitting Lucas Shamanich, however you feel about him, but Devin Vassell, who these guys are just collecting dust on the bench. Like that's a tank job. But I want to go back to something, to a point that you just made. I thought it was kind of interesting is like, we don't deserve this. Like that whole line, like I go back and forth on that because we are a gluttonous franchise, right? We've been the product of a lot of success that other fan bases have not had the luxury of. And here we are, like last year being like the weird transition year, like what are they doing? The Spurs should have had a plan in place by now. And it should have been a pretty obvious plan in place. But what we see right now is a team that is, I mean, I don't know about you. I think that they're trying to make the playoffs. I think that's the concerning part is Popovich,
absolutely. Yeah, they are.
They're trying to make the playoffs. And it's like, why did you guys assemble this team if you're trying to make the playoffs?
The sad part. Yeah. But that's the thing though. I think that if they played the young guys, we might have a better chance of making the playoffs. I think it's the same old rotation of playing Rudy too much. And you know what? I love Rudy. Great guy. You can tell that the young guys love him. Great locker room guy. You can tell that he really just, I mean, he's good for morale. I think he called Devin his son the other day. That was funny. But I mean, he goes into Rudy mode of 2010 whenever he still thinks he's the prime option for the Grizzlies, and that's not him anymore. That's not what we need.
It was kind of weird watching the Trailblazers the other night because there was a good 3 minutes of basketball where it was Rudy Gay on one end and Carmelo on the other end. And I was like, please take me out of 2009. I've had enough of 2009. So that's a good one. I think it's important to like, you have to have veterans on the team. There are some people that say no vets, which I did a poll a couple weeks ago. And there were people that was actually like, no, we need to get rid of all the vets. No, you need to keep vets, but it's what vets they are and how much they're playing, especially in it's essentially a rebuilding year. Anything that they get is going to be gravy and icing on the cake. But I just cannot figure out how we're seeing so many of these minutes in these close games and then losing these close games. It's baffling to me.
I'm dumbfounded. And I know, I forget the username now. I think Doc Holliday. I think he's a really big Rudy Gay fan. I'm going to go ahead and call him out right now. He has a copious amount of Rudy stats that I think are a little troubling because he has like these inane stats where it talks about the average wins we have whenever Rudy plays so many minutes. You know what? Yeah, I mean, play the young guys. That's all I have to say because at the end of the day, those are the guys that are going to be here 2, 4, 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
DeMar's not going to be here. Rudy's not going to be here. Yeah, right? I mean, but they're the ones that we need. Those are the guys that are going to lead us in the future. Start developing them now.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about this. Now, I think two things can be true here. I think you can say Gregg Popovich is, in my personal opinion, he's the greatest coach of all time. That's my personal belief. There are some that would say Red Auerbach. There were some that would say Pat Riley, Phil Jackson. The point is he's in the conversation of probably a top 5 coach at all time at minimum.
Yeah.
That said, every dog has their day in the sun. It can also be true that Gregg Popovich has run his race. And I think
absolutely.
It's really bizarre to see him in his waning years and say that a coach of his caliber is going, yeah, I just want to develop guys. Like, I just want to, I don't care about winning a title. I just want to develop guys. Like, really, you came here to develop guys. Well, why? And what for? And where are we seeing that development? Like, is your idea of development here, Devin Vassell and Luka Šamanić? I want you guys to sit here on the bench with a pen and paper and take notes and watch what Rudy Gay and Patty Mills does so that you can learn from them, because this is your development. Like, I simultaneously love him and he drives me nuts at the same time. I'm not advocating for firing him. Unfortunately, you just have to let him run his course. But what do you do with him?
And you said that the last podcast too, and I like the way you put that as far as running his race, right? Because it's a rat race out there, and I think being an NBA coach is hard, and I think the coaches will tell you that. And the fact that I think that an average span for an NBA coach is like 3 years. I think we've had some guys in the league maybe 1, 2, 3 years. Poor guy in Houston. I'm totally just forgetting his name right now. Steven Silas, longtime Mavericks assistant, finally gets his opportunity, and then Beard goes and pulls what he pulls. I hope they give him another chance. But I wanted to touch on that real quick, because on Friday, whenever I was at the game, I was watching just, of course, for me, I like watching the game, of course, but I also like watching the bench interaction, because that for me is almost like a game within a game. Yeah. So I saw something very interesting at one point. And we know Pop, right? I mean, longtime Spurs fans know what Pop used to be like back whenever he gave Tony Parker the business back in the day. I mean, he was on his ass every day. I mean, like unlike any other. And that's almost the fiery, just fire and brimstone Pop that I want to see again. But that was Pop like 20 years ago. And just like in anything, right? We all mellow out as we age. We all mellow out. We kind of just start to let things ride out and pass, that maybe things that we didn't whenever we were younger. And that's kind of at the stage where he's at now. What, he's 75, 76?
He's 70 old.
Yeah, he's in his 70s. He's older, and now he's grandfather encouraging Pop, because this is a perfect example. Lonnie Walker made a mistake on Friday on the defensive end, and rather than the chewing him out, barking, he went up to Lonnie. He encouraged him. He started massaging his shoulders. You know, that little Joe Biden massage, shoulder massage he was giving. So he started doing that with Lonnie. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's interesting, because that's not the Pop. I mean, I guarantee you, Tony would have stories about how Pop used to ride him so bad back in the day.
Right.
That's not Pop anymore. And as much as I want to see that again, that's just not him. And I think that's part of it.
So the weird part about this is like there's like an underlying narrative that exists. It's definitely on Spurs Twitter, and I'm sure it exists in other realms too. But it's this automatic assumption that Becky Hammon is going to get the job, and I'm not here to discuss the merits.
I hope so.
I'm not here to discuss the merits on whether or not she deserves it or doesn't deserve it or what. But the point is if she's following Gregory Popovich, she's going to have big shoes to fill. And I just don't feel like, I don't know that Popovich is setting her up for success right now, because what we have is, if that is going to be Becky, where does she come into all this? I mean, is she following this guy and just going, okay, I'm going to do the same thing Popovich was doing? Or is she just going to completely shift and there's going to be this whole different personality? And now she's going to be like, hey, Patty, I know you were playing 33 minutes a game, but now you're going to play 16 minutes a game. These are the players I want. Like, there's so much that goes into like the next chapter of the coaching of the San Antonio Spurs, but we can't even get to the next chapter until Popovich closes his chapter. And like you just said, we're not getting the old fire and brimstone, chew you out Gregg Popovich that suddenly turns a little French point guard into a Hall of Fame point guard. And you know me, I don't like Tony Parker, and I'm still admitting that.
I love you, Tony.
But Popovich made that out of him, and we're not even getting that anymore. We're getting the, hey, it's all right, man. It's okay. But also, Devin, sit there, and Lucas, sit there, and Lonnie, now you're going to be a jump shooter. Like, it's just, there's so many weird parts of his development his development phase of coaching. I just don't know if that's something that Popovich is very good at. Like, he's probably better at coaching title contenders than he is rebuilding teams.
Yeah, and here's the bottom line. I mean, and you know it, I know it, everyone out there in Spurs Twitter world knows it. The big three, that was Coach Pop. That was I mean, they covered all warts, right? I mean, it's very easy to coach a team whenever you have Tim, Tony, and Manu, all Hall of Fame players that I mean, they in crunch time, you knew who the ball was going to. And I think all of us knew that we're very confident, hey, we were going to execute at the very end of the game. It's very easy to sit back and, say, of course, that Pop is the greatest coach of all time whenever you have those players to rely on. And I'm not taking anything away from him, because you know what? I think X's and O's, there's probably better coaches, but Pop was the best at being able to manage personalities and manage expectations and just manage people. I think that's really his strongest suit, is the way he was able to manage people, manage the players and everybody around him. That's why everybody loves him. That's why there's that pop tree out there now, because he's been able to nurture and build up so many other coaches under him to where everyone loves him because of that. We hear all the stories about the family dinners and leaving carrot cake at Tim's door and everything else. That's Pop. That's the Pop that we know and love. It's just that now we don't have any Hall of Famers on this team. I mean, granted, I don't think DeMar is going to be a Hall of Famer at the end of his career. There's no Hall of Famers anymore. We need Hall of Famers. We need talent. We're outclassed every game now. And it's the game's kind of flown by him.
And the other weird part about that is all of what you said is true. We very well might not have a Hall of Famer on the current San Antonio Spurs roster. And we all know that the Spurs don't have enough talent on their roster to win games. I mean, there's a thing going on right now with the San Antonio Spurs that teams are resting their players against the Spurs, and they're still beating the brakes off the Spurs. And that's very concerning. Of course, then the Spurs will go out and just randomly beat a Phoenix Suns team at full strength, which then you're like, what are you guys doing? But in the middle of it, we have seen some growth. And just here in our last 10 minutes or so, we've seen some growth from this roster. I do think that Devin Vassell is going to be a player. I think he's got some real talent to him. The problem is we haven't seen enough of Devin to really judge how good of a player he's going to be. He still lacks for opportunity.
That's the problem right there. Like what you just said right now, you could have just stopped right there. The problem is we haven't seen Devin. Yeah. We need to see more of Devin.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem.
We need to see more of him. I actually have really come to like Lonnie Walker as the super sub in the 6-man role. I mean, I think give me more Lonnie love. Give me Lonnie love. Yeah, I'm going to give you a little bit here. He's clearly talented, but the truth is he needs the ball in his hand. I hate that they've turned him into a spot up shooter. We've seen, I mean, Drew Eubanks is, good grief, for a third string center who started off on a 2-way contract. Like, Drew's overperformed. I think that we've seen some improvement of the DeJounte Derek White backcourt. That still has a long way to go, though, to being an elite backcourt. But they're still young. And the other interesting thing that I've seen is I've seen a little bit of growth in DeMar DeRozan that a lot of people might not talk about. And I don't want to get into should the Spurs re-sign him or not. But I do think that there's been a part where DeMar he's had to play a different role than he's ever played before. He's clearly the number one offensive option, especially since LaMarcus left. And you've had to see him, take over a little bit more, but you've seen him do he's got more touch passes in his game, and he's got more thinking to the next play in his game that he didn't have in the previous years. Maybe he's being more comfortable, but I also think he's aging gracefully a little bit. So I guess just all around, it's weird because you've seen a development from the Spurs, but you also see them in 10th place sitting at 28 and 28. But I just want to know real quick, what's kind of been your most enjoyable thing this year that you've seen developmental wise, or something that stood out where you're like, hey, I really like this, or I want to see more of this? Obviously Lonnie a little bit more, Devin, but who else?
I think someone that we really did not see coming out of the gates the way he did, and has maybe kind of slept off a little bit the last week or two, maybe 3, Keldon. right? I mean, whenever we drafted him last year, he was kind of a little bit of an afterthought because he was that throw-in pick with the Kawhi trade. Obviously developed in Austin. We know how we feel about that. Really had a strong bubble performance, right? But didn't really know what was going to happen after that. And I
Breakout
remember
bubble.
that opening, definitely breakout bubble. That first game, I remember he came out against Memphis this year, and he scored, I mean, at will, right? I mean, he was aggressive, he was strong, he was dominant. He went to the basket with, I mean, just reckless abandon, right? That's the Keldon we know and love now. And I think I want to say, like, for the next 3 or 4 games, he was the player that scored our first points every game. And he's been the most just ferocious, just tenacious player that we kind of need to see that attitude.
Yeah.
And I think I've even said on Twitter before, and I've talked to some other guys, if Lonnie had that kind of ferociousness and tenacity and that single-mindedness, he'd be an animal. I mean, he would be an all-star now, today. But I mean, we all kind of have our own personalities. But I've liked Keldon's development. I've liked Lonnie's development, of course. I've always been a big Lonnie fan. Derek, I think he's finally come around. You know what? I mean, thankfully he's been healthy the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just had a string of bad luck as far as his health. If it's not the tooth, if it's not his foot, if it's not his toe, if it's not whatever.
He's mono, bro.
He is. He is mono 2.0. He's El Contusion 2.0. And it's nice that he's been able to establish a rhythm again. I think he's definitely our best all-around player as far as being able to facilitate, drive, shoot, all the things, right? So I've loved that about him. I just want to see more of it. I want to see more of the youth, the young guys out there playing. And you know what? Win or lose, that's who I want to see out there. Because at the end of the day, those are the guys that are going to be here at the end of the day. DeMar, I don't think he's going to be here past this year. So I want to see our young guys out there.
So I still do. And I still do want to see him. And that's where you and I can disagree. But I do want to say, if you're right that DeMar is not going to be here, then I think it would behoove the San Antonio Spurs to start putting the ball in other players' hands at the end of games, especially as they're a 10 seed. They're going to be fighting for every game. They need every game. They should be playing hard every game. So I thought it was interesting a couple of weeks ago, DeMar hit the game winner the other night, which good for him. I mean, I was happy for him. I think it was, he lost his dad about 10 days prior to that. So good for him in a lot of different ways. But as we are –
Plus, it was against the Mavericks. We all love beating the Mavericks.
Yeah, I'm always happy to do that. But as we're wrapping up the season, we're coming in towards the home stretch here. Now's the time where you have to start thinking about that. If DeMar is really going to help this team with a playoff push, then it would be good business practices to try and get a return on your investment and be like, hey, you're coming back, right? Because we wasted all this player development, by putting you in there. Otherwise, if you feel like there's people out there that are like, DeMar's definitely not going to come back, then I think you have to start doing some things at the end of games and going, DeMar, you're not coming back? Grab a seat. Lonnie, this last shot's yours. Derek White, close the game out for us. DeJounte, putting the ball in your hands. But we're still not seeing that yet, and that's what makes me think like, we might see DeMar again in a San Antonio Spurs uniform.
We might very well do that. And it's funny, I kind of sparked a little bit ago. I think you were suggesting something along the lines of the front office having some type of plan that maybe they should have a return on investment. That's funny. We all know how we feel about
big dreams.
The GM. Yeah, those are big dreams. Those are high aspirations for this front office right now. But here's the thing. I think that the hope is that he comes back. I think within the organization, they probably want to have him back. Maybe not. Definitely not at a max contract. I think they want to probably talk to him and say, hey, you know what? We could probably do some things differently here. We could probably maybe add some pieces if you take a reduced cut in pay. At his age, he's probably not going to do that. And I don't blame him. I mean, he's probably going to be on his penultimate contract, and that's second to last for those people out there. So that's the word of the day, right? So probably not going to take a pay cut. And let's face it, he's probably going to want to go back home. Where there's smoke, there's fire. There's been too much smoke over the last year talking about how he's going to explore his options, right? He's going to explore free agency. He's going to talk to other teams. You and I both know, especially I think we're still scarred from what happened a couple years ago with Kawhi. whenever the media reports first started coming out about how he was dissatisfied or displeased. I remember you and I especially having a conversation about that. And we're like, you know what? Not us, not the Spurs, right? That's never happened to us. You know what? Where there's smoke, there's fire. I think he's going to explore things, and I think he's going to leave. But I'm okay with it. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm not going to be upset with it. I'd be a little bit disappointed because I've really come to like DeMar. I think DeMar's done
I like him too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's just done. He's made the best out of a situation that he didn't ask for. I just wonder how much of this would be like. Look, I can go chase money. Like neither of his home teams can afford him. Like that's the truth, unless they're going to do a sign-in trade. And I don't know which players off the Clippers or Lakers roster, not named LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, or Paul George, like you're really going to want for him. So the home thing is like, I don't know. It's going to go back to the Raptors. Like I doubt it. And then it's like, you're just going to go to the East and play. Like maybe he does. I'm not DeMar. I'm not in DeMar's head. But I would, to your point, I would make the counter argument, just be like, hey, dude, you're sitting here in an organization that needs you, wants a star, and they've pretty much been fully supportive of everything that you've gone on in like your mental health capacity and your mental health advocacy. And also, you're going to get to play for the first female coach in the history of the NBA. Like, how about a 3 for 90? How about a 3 for 90 deal, and we'll give you a player option on the third year. Like that's the kind of stuff that we're going to see. All right. So closing thoughts. How do you want to last minute here? What do you want to see in the last quarter of the season?
This is what I want to see. I want to see some competitiveness, right? I want to see the team compete. Whether they win or lose, I want to see them compete. I want to see a full-blown youth movement. I know we're not going to see it, but that's what I want to see. I want to see Devin out there playing consistent minutes, 15 to 25 minutes a night. He should be receiving no less. The fact that he carried us to that win, that very improbable win against Phoenix the other day. I mean, that was a beautiful Devin game. I think he has major star potential, probably along the lines of Paul George. He has that Paul George kind of game, right? Long, lanky, 3-and-D type, good shooter. Every time he shoots a three, I think he's going to make it. So I think he has that weight room. I want to see more Devin. Yeah. Well, they said that same thing about Kevin Durant, right? Whenever he came in the league, he couldn't bench 150. I think. Oof. I mean, the ball's only 10 pounds. Hale, the ball's only 10 pounds.
That's a good point. I like it. Danny, you're the man. Thanks for jumping on. I appreciate you. Oh,
great. I loved it.
Filling in here. That's Danny Sanders. You guys can follow him on Twitter at Danny Sanders 80. You can follow me at the Hailstone. I'm masquerading as Alfonso Del Quan. There's our timer, which means I have to wrap up here. And don't forget to follow Casa De Spurs on our Twitter feed as well. You can follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere where you get your podcasts. We're out there. That's pretty much all for us here. Of course, we did this filling in for our guy Trace, but we'll come back with more of these programs. Excuse us for being a little rough around the edges, but thanks, Danny. Glad to have you here, and thanks for everybody who listened. Yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time. Go Spurs, go.
Go Spurs, go. Go Spurs, go.